Hello there. I wanted to make a quick video on how to properly transplant a tree. I always recommend to customers when I go and look at their trees, they have a beautiful shade tree that they love to play under, and it's rotten. It's got a very large hole in the center of it and it has to come down. And they're always upset because that's their favorite shade tree, and it just changes the look of the yard. And then once you take that tree down, it's barren. So my recommendation to everyone is always keep young trees in the yard. I've got 3 trees in my backyard right now. I had to take 2 of them down, or 2 down last year. I started with 4, had to take 2 down. I need to take another one down because it's getting nasty as well. So I'll only be left with 1 tree. And I love trees, so I'm going to plant a young one to keep the young trees in the yard. And transplanting trees is not as easy as it sounds. Everyone thinks that you just dig a hole, plant a tree in it, and you're fine. Well, there's a few things that you want to do to make sure that your tree lives. And I'm going to go over them with you. So I have not successfully transplanted a tree yet with it living very healthy and just taking off like it should. So I think I've learned how not to do it. I'm going to show you how to do it. Number 1, most important, in my opinion, and where I think I've gone wrong, is transplanting trees at the wrong time of year. In the springtime, it's nice out, everybody wants to get out there and do some yard work. And my idea of yard work is doing something with trees. So this time I'm not going to make that mistake. I'm going to get out in the winter time when the tree is dormant. That way it can come alive in the spring and hopefully take off a whole lot better than planting it in the springtime when it's trying to get that green flush of leaves out, and it's using all its preserves from last year, and then it can't get a steady flow of nutrients and water. So we're going to plant this while it's dormant. This is a little oak tree that I got from my neighbors, and I love oak trees. It's not a white oak, it's not a red oak. It's another type of oak that I think is a little bit faster growing. The 2 trees that I had to take out, one was a redbud tree, one's a buckeye tree. So now I have a little bit extra room to put for the sunlight to reach. And a tree as small as this doesn't need much sunlight, so I'm good as far as sunlight. And then if it takes off, I'm going to take down this other silver maple, which everybody knows silver maples are junk. You have to keep an eye on them. You're always picking up sticks. So that's going to go. I'm going to replace it with a tree that I like. I'm going to prune it myself, which I'll probably do a pruning video. But in this video, we're going to go over how to properly plant a tree. ISA, I got a pamphlet from ISA, Indiana Society of Arboriculture, I believe is what the ISA stands for, because I was at a tree climbing competition in Indiana, which is where I'm from. Maybe International Society of Arboriculture, I don't know. But I got the pamphlet over there. I'll go over it. First thing I'm going to look at is on this oak tree is the root ball, and I'm going to figure out where the flare is on the tree. The flare is where the main trunk starts to kind of mushroom out. You want to keep an eye on that because that's where you don't want to cover that up too much. You want that to be exposed. So here's my root ball. I just went and dug it up. The ground was nice and moist, so I was able to get a decent root ball to stick together. Well, I guess not. That always happens. Probably best to put it in a bucket or something and pack it down maybe. I'm not sure on how to keep that root ball together. Put it in a burlap sack, let it sit for a couple days. Anyway, wow, that's falling right apart. Might even help you to do it when the ground is still frozen. I'm going to go ahead and dig the hole for it. I figured the placement's going to be right here in between these 2 trees, kind of out of the way. But remember, when you're digging the hole, you don't necessarily want to go deep, you want to go wide. That way the roots go out. Most people don't know, but the drip edge of the tree is where the outside of the canopy is. The roots actually go twice the distance of the drip edge to the tree. So if you go to the edge of your tree's canopy and look at the tree, if it's 10 feet, the roots are going to be out 20 feet. And that's in both directions. Roots actually grow out, they don't grow down. That's why certain trees are really susceptible to drought. So whenever you're planting the tree, make sure it's not right next to a sidewalk or a driveway or anything like that, or next to the house, because you want it to have plenty of room for the roots to grow out and get moisture in the future. So kind of think ahead. Also, look up before you decide where you're going to plant your tree. If there's a power line right there, well, in 10 years you're going to have a tree guy come in and hack it all up, and 90% of tree guys don't know what they're doing. So it's on you to do your research and make sure that you know how to properly prune your tree and put it in the right spot so that it'll have a place to go in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and start digging. And the root ball is about 6 inches in diameter, and we'll say kind of spherical shape. So we'll go down about 6 inches, and then we'll go out maybe twice that. So there's about the depth. There's about 6 inches deep. There's about 6 inches deep right there. Okay. You don't. Here, I'll get into that here in a bit. But you don't want to pack down your soil too much. You want a little bit of. If you know anything about soil health, you want there to be a 50-50 ratio from space to soil. You kind of want it to be a little bit porous. So don't overpack it when you put it in there. I'll show you what I'm talking about. But there's about 6 inch diameter hole. I'm going to go out even further. So I'm not going deep, I'm going wide. This should give the roots plenty of soft soil to grow through. Most people will probably have some mulch to cover up whenever you plant your tree. Put some mulch around it that'll cover up the dirt. I'm not going to do that, but possibly, maybe, if it ends up making too much of a mess. But all right, so I got a pretty wide hole, about 6 inches deep. Okay, so here's my flare. Here's where it starts to pop out a little bit. Don't want to cover that up. You want it halfway exposed. And if you just freshly pulled your little tree out of the ground, you could probably tell where it's still wet and try to cover it up the exact same. So I'm going to take this and keep as much of it together, much of this ball together as I possibly can. And then of course you want your tree growing straight up out of the ground. If it's not perfect, then right here's where everybody overpacks it. You don't want to pack it too hard. You don't want to pack it too hard. And then you also, oh wow, that doesn't look straight up at all. You also want the ground to kind of hold water for it. So if it rains, the water is going to go towards the center of the tree. And then you want your ground to be porous enough to where it doesn't just sit there on the tree. So have it kind of coning in some water. Wow. And then I'm trying to get this down to where that root ball is going to be just below or not the root ball, the flare is going to be just below the rest. This one looks to be a little bit high. So I'll kind of dig that out a little bit. Set that down in there. Okay, there we go. We'll kind of put all this fresh, soft, broken up dirt around it to hold it in place. Okay, pack it in just a hair. Don't overpack it, like I said. And then kind of get that soft dirt in there. Maybe every now and then, give it a little bit of a pack. Don't overpack it. This is, so far we know that we want to transplant our tree in the wintertime. We don't want to overpack it, which is like the 5th time I said that, but it's extremely important. And then when we put the dirt back in it, we'll want to kind of mound it up. That way the water gets to the tree, and do not cover up too much of the trunk. Here's a deadly thing to trees as well. Accidentally smacking them with the weed eater. Don't want to do that either. Just be careful when you're weed eating around it. Maybe that's a good reason to put mulch around it, so that way the grass doesn't grow. And then you can just hand pick the grass around it to keep it looking nice and don't have to risk hurting the tree. Some people like to put like the dog waste or animal waste around it, horse stuff for nutrients. That's fine, that's great. Just don't let that sit up against the tree. Make sure that there's plenty of room for the trunk to breathe. Just kind of packing this up. I am super excited for this little guy to take off. He hung on to his leaves. Right now it's February 5th. He hung onto its leaves like into January. We had a real cold weather come through and got below 0 for like a week and below freezing for like 3 weeks. And that was when it finally let its leaves go, and that's a sign that it's a good, healthy tree. If you got a tree that loses its leaves early in the fall, probably not that very healthy of a tree. That's just something I noticed. I don't know the science behind it, but usually when the trees are losing their leaves, see, this is still a bit high, but it'll be fine. Got plenty of dirt here to make our mound and keep it healthy. Of course, this dirt will settle in. See some worms in there, that's good. Trying to keep it nice and all right. So we're about level with the ground right now. I still have quite a bit of this flare exposed. So it's going to take a little bit of dirt to create the mound around it and get the tree properly, or the dirt around it in the proper shape. Of course, you don't want your tree at the top of the hill. You kind of want it down in the hill. And I didn't go deep enough. Maybe go, if the root ball is 6 inches, maybe go 8 inches. So you learn something every time. I don't think this is going to be an issue, as small as this tree is, as healthy as it was in the fall. I think this will be just fine. Kind of mound up around it. Get it to hold some then I'm just kind of gently packing it down. I'm not like hitting it with a shovel or really packing it in there or driving over it with a roller and a lawnmower. Just kind of nice and gentle packing. Okay, so the trees so I'm a tree guy that doesn't necessarily care to take down good healthy trees. I like trees. I think neighborhoods look so much better with trees around, and your house is probably worth more with trees, and even if they're young trees. If you're gonna sell the house in a few years and move out to the country, plant some trees. That will help it sell, because I probably wouldn't have bought this house if it didn't have a few trees in the backyard. Tight enough to hold a tree. You want the ground packed tight enough to hold the tree in place. That way a windstorm won't blow it away, but loose enough to where it'll soak in the water when it rains. And then the ground around it, excuse me, to kind of funnel that water into it. Rainwater, and if you hit it with the water hose for a few seconds, you don't want it all just to rush away from the tree. So this tree right here, I'll try to adjust it, get it up a little bit straighter. But as it will grow, it'll naturally go towards the light. Don't prune your tree unless it's about 2 inches in diameter. The main trunk is 2 inches in diameter, or if you've had it in the ground for 3 years. Wait 3 years before you go making cuts on it. But at those 3 years, certainly get out there and make those cuts. Any codominant stem, you want one trunk. Any other stem that's coming off the main trunk that's kind of fighting for dominance, take that down a little bit. Make sure that that main trunk is what's getting to the top. You do not want any codominant stems. That is what makes the silver maple trees so awful. And really, like the tree behind me, it's got 2 codominant stems on it, and it makes it very unpredictable and unsafe, and eventually will have to be taken down. So that one really needs to be looked at, but that's a whole nother video explaining large branches and codominant stems. But okay, here I'll kind of, not the prettiest job. I'm kind of in a little bit of a hurry, but I've been meaning to do this, and I thought, you know what, while I got the time, I'm gonna jump out there and do this. Here, I'll put a little bit of alrighty. Of course, it's not straight up and down, but time will fix that, and proper pruning will get this thing straight as an arrow. I'm very excited about this. Can't wait to see what happens here in a few months when it starts warming up and leaves start coming out. Here, I'll show you what we got here. Alrighty, here we are. So this mound off to the side kind of funnels the water to the tree. You can see it starting to flare right there. So I don't want to ever have anything up against this for a long period of time. That's not good for your tree. I probably wouldn't put any kind of tag on it. or anything like that. I'd probably just let it sit there. If you want to stake it, you can stake it. I'd probably wouldn't go with all 3 stakes like some people do. And if you do go with all 3 stakes, make sure you got something that doesn't rub the tree and kill the cambium on the outside. Just make sure that nothing touches it and gouges it. A little scratch will be fine, but if it starts to wear, because the nutrients go from the ground to the top of the tree on the outer layer. So if you gouge in the side of it, it can only get nutrients up the tree the other side. So you can see here, not too packed in, but also tight enough to hold that tree there. So that's how you do it. I'll do an update on it in the spring, and gosh, it does not look straight up and down. But it'll get there. So, alrighty, that's how you plant your tree. Good luck.